classic American take. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. He's just, I mean, they're gonna try and turn Iran into Gaza, clearly, and then claim that this is like liberating the Iranians from the IRGC, just like Israel liberated. Rules don't really exist as it stands currently because the Trump administration does not care. Trump was even more insane, apparently, earlier in the morning before he did the White House press conference when he was getting out of his plane. Let's take a look at what some of his choice quotes from then.
Yeah, who you with? Who you with?
He always asks, who are you with? Like, he used to do that exclusively for like CNN and New York Times and whatnot back in the day. Now he just like, anytime someone asks a contentious question, he's like, who are you with? 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 It's fucking annoying.
Well, that's a radical left group of lunatics that you're with. Let me just tell you, very fair question. The Iranian people, when they don't hear bombs go off, they're upset. They want to hear bombs because they want to be free. And the only reason they're not out protesting, you know that, is because they were informed that if they protest, like the wrestler and his friends, if they protest, they will be shot immediately. And that's an edict. That's in writing.
Yeah, he's liberating them from their mortal coil. Classic American response, classic American take. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. He's just, I mean, they're gonna try and turn Iran into Gaza, clearly, and then claim that this is like liberating the Iranians from the IRGC, just like Israel liberated the Palestinians from Hamas. Some logic there. They love hearing the bombing is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably stupid, and yet it works. I mean, everything works. When you think about it, he can say whatever he wants, really, because it's not like... There's two problems here, okay? Number one, even if the overwhelming majority of Americans are like, why are we doing this? We should stop this right now, which is the case. That is what's going on currently. That is what the overwhelming majority of Americans are saying. It doesn't really matter because we are less responsive than ever before to democratic pressures, right? Like, unlike ever before. I mean, one could make the argument that we were never really responsive when it comes to foreign policy. Foreign policy is bipartisan. It's uniparty. It doesn't really matter. And it's done at the behest of capital owners. Sure. But like, this level of unpopularity is not even shaking the administration's confidence. Okay. That's number one. Number two, he maintains his base. He maintains his base of support no matter what he says. No one is holding him to account. They just hear what they want to hear, and they don't hear what what contradicts their worldview. It's crazy. That's just how it is. So if you're wondering why, like, the cult is not moving, regardless of all of the signals showing that this is going to be devastating overall, it's because they're a cult, and they don't understand that Donald Trump is destroying the global energy markets and also wasting tax dollars while simultaneously making their immediate lives worse, not addressing the inflation crisis at all, which he said he was going to combat, making it worse, as a matter of fact. The only thing he could hold on to was like how low the gas prices were, if you recall. And now he can't even do that, and it doesn't even matter. No one even cares. It's very frustrating to watch. In any case, here's Al Jazeera. Last night, right on cue, Barak Unit 8200 Ravid, for the ball knowers and the enjoyers, right before market open, came out and released yet another incredible piece of, I don't even want to call it journalism. It's just like pro-regime propaganda, honestly, where he did one of his classic, there's a deal that's imminent, right? He said, in a last-ditch push, The U.S., Iran, and a group of regional mediators are discussing the terms of a potential 45-day ceasefire that could lead to a permanent end of the war, according to 4 U.S., Israeli, and regional sources. My story on Axios. I said, wow, just in time for the markets. Thanks, Barack. Now, of course, that didn't even have the impact that it was supposed to have, because even the markets are like, come on, man, you do this every fucking Sunday night. Get out of here. You literally do this every Sunday night. It's so funny that they're just right on cue every fucking Sunday, shameless, immediately going, no, you don't understand. It's just, a peace deal is imminent, right? Of course, Iran said, no, that's not the case. Here is Donald Trump then talking about the Tuesday deadline and more.
The one, they are both recovering very well. They were both injured, and they're doing well. What else?
Mr. President, you said that Iran has no anti-aircraft equipment. How are they able to drop those?
Well, you know what? When you do thousands and thousands of flights, and you have one plane shot down, and not mortally, the 2 pilots got out. They got a little bit lucky. And you know what? In war, you need a little bit of luck also. They got a little bit lucky. That's all they got.
Ending the war. What's stopping you from ending the war?
Well, it could end very quickly, the war, if they do what they have to do. They have to do certain things. They know that. They've been negotiating, I think, in good faith. We've had total regime change. You know, the people there now are much more reasonable than the lunatics that you had in phase 1 and phase 2. They were lunatics. The people that we're negotiating with now on behalf of Iran are much more reasonable. You can call it what you want, but I call it regime change, and I think most people are giving us credit for that. The first regime was taken out. The second regime was taken out. Now the third group of people that we're dealing with is not as radicalized, and we think they're actually much smarter.
Why did you use such vulgar language in that Truth Social post?
Only to make my point. I think you've heard it before.
Mr. President, have you spoken to the families of the airmen that were saved? Have you spoken to the families of the airmen that were saved?
I'm going to be doing it right now.
Mr. President, what do you say to Americans who are not a fan of the war?
They're foolish, because the war is about one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Just saw a guy on Twitter say you're wearing a Rolex in your Cuba video. Care to address the $1 billion watch allegations? Yeah. I got a Rollie on my wrist. Always. It might look like an Apple Watch, but it's actually a Rollie. Big face Rollie on my wrist.
Had we not broken the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, you know what I'm talking about, the Iran nuclear deal. This is years ago, my first term. You would have had a total.
Do you think the endless chanting death to America and rapid development of a nuclear program weren't the real threat in the future? What would be the alternative? Let Iran develop their missile and nuclear programs and support paramilitary groups around the region? Just asking, not curious. Just asking, curious, not hating. Yes. Okay. Countries have a perfectly valid reason to be able to create military deterrence. Okay. And yes, Iran and the region would absolutely be more stable if Iran had nukes, okay? Ironically enough, the guys that this administration actually killed in the first salvo were the guys who were holding back Iran's nuclear program and Iran's nuclear ambitions. The only reason why they enriched uranium beyond civilian use was to try to get America back to the negotiations process so they could get some sanctions relief. And what he just talked about, ironically enough, with the JCPOA, Barack Obama's attempts at normalizing relations with Iran, unfreezing some of its assets, and maybe even dangling sanctions relief in the long term. That was actually an incredibly successful way to get Iran to no longer develop nuclear arms, no longer have a nuclear project. And it was a multilateral commitment from both China, Russia, and European allies as well. It was a very long and convoluted process. And bro, false. None of the Shia Muslims wanted Iran nuclear. Stop selling nonsense. Wait, what? Sunni Muslims wanted Iran nuclear? What are you saying? In any case, yes, I think that the the region would be far more stable if Iran had nukes, because they wouldn't be able to do this stuff. They wouldn't be able to blow up Iran. They wouldn't be able to do these unlimited bombing campaigns over Iran if they had nukes because of nuclear deterrence. And therefore, the Strait of Hormuz would not be closed right now. Therefore, the global energy markets would not be fucked right now. So the reality of the matter is Iran tried negotiations over and over again with the United States of America, but most Americans are completely oblivious to it because Americans, unfortunately, are some of the most propagandized people on the planet. And as far as like them saying death to America, I mean, of course they're going to say death to America. For 47 years, we have actively destroyed this country. We've actively crippled this country's economy. We've actively tried to kill Iranians and have killed Iranians. We've also allowed our regional ally, our unsinkable aircraft carrier in the region, to destabilize the entire region over and over again in increasingly more bloody ways, including but not limited to the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza that unfolded over the course of the last 2.5 years. So from their perspective, it's perfectly understandable that they say death to Israel or death to America. Why wouldn't they say that? I mean, we say that to them. And on top of that, unlike Iran, we have actually delivered death to Iran, right? We did. In the Iran-Iraq war, our guy, Saddam Hussein, many of you might not know this, did actually wage a fairly bloody war against Iran. That was devastating. So, of course, perfectly rational for them to say that. But if you listen to any of the sober analysts and military generals and even people like Joe Kent, who were in the administration until like a month ago, they very openly admit that Iran never actually presented a significant threat to the United States of America. None of these countries have ever presented a significant threat to the United States of America. Iraq didn't. Afghanistan certainly didn't. And Iran is no different, right? And we have lied in different ways about why we had to wage war in all of these countries. And these were very costly wars. These were very destabilizing wars. It created a refugee crisis in Europe. Obviously, America, given its proximity, has always been sheltered from the worst impacts of the instability that it creates all around the world. But the reality of the matter is, yes, Donald Trump is showing the world right now that it is the absolute worst way to deal with Iran. This is the absolute worst way to deal with Iran. Barack Obama's dealings with Iran was an infinitely better way of dealing with Iran. If you truly were fearful of Iran receiving a nuclear weapon, then you should be celebrating Barack Obama and you should be damning Donald Trump to hell every day, because he actually, unlike Donald Trump, successfully engaged in diplomacy and was able to stop the nuclear grade enrichment of uranium. So it doesn't even make sense from your stated purpose, your stated goals.
Israel would have been gone, extinguished. Israel would have been wiped off the face of the earth. And
see, this is what I mean. It's like we never talk about this with Ukraine. Like Donald Trump, if someone were to be like, if we did not intervene and aid Ukraine as Russia was waging its unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine, Donald Trump would be like, why should I care? Who gives a fuck? Right? But when it comes to Israel, he's like, well, if it wasn't for us, Israel would be ended. It would be gone. And of course, this, like a lot of Americans also are probably not looking at this and going, oh, thank God we actually did this for Israel, because a lot of Americans have a negative opinion of Israel for good reason. So I think this is a very unpopular narrative. It might be popular for the evangelical Christian Zionists, which make up, a healthy chunk of the Trump base, the MAGA base. But for the rest of the country, that's not in that 30%, this kind of sentiment doesn't actually read well with them or sit well with them at all. When they hear this, they go, why the fuck should I care? This is so ridiculous. Fuck you.
the entire Middle East would have been, at a minimum, in big trouble. But I did it. That was phase one. We killed Soleimani. Without Soleimani, if they had Soleimani, it would be a whole different thing. Maybe. Would still be winning, but it would have been harder. Because we are obliterating that country. And I hate to do it, but we're obliterating, and they just don't want to say uncle. They They don't want to cry, as the expression goes, uncle, but they will. And if they don't, they'll have no bridges, they'll have no power plants, they'll have no anything. I won't go further.
The problem here is that Iran has engaged in maximum deterrence. Quite successfully, if I might add. Shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, only allowing tankers that they are escorting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz after they pay a toll, generating revenue to make up for all the lost revenue and all the damaged assets. All of that shows that they are capable of being a regional actor that has a lot more power than America thought it did. Or rather, I think a lot of people in America also knew that Iran had this capability. That's part of the reason why they didn't do this, right? Because it's not like Israel didn't want to destroy Iran since the 90s. I mean, America, like I said, engaged in a proxy war against Iran with the Iraqi forces, right? With Saddam Hussein. So this was always in the cards for us. But a big part of the reason why we never fully entertained this in the way that Donald Trump is entertained, bombing Iran, doing a decapitation strike, maybe even trying to foment instability and potentially balkanize Iran. The reason why we didn't do it is because many in the intelligence community and our generals understood that Iran would be able to very effectively, with ease, shut off the Strait of Hormuz and cause a global energy crash. And that's happening right now. Now, the problem is the rest of the world that are a part of the American security umbrella, America's allies, have to go back to America and demand change, because it's very clear that Donald Trump does not care. He keeps repeatedly saying over and over again, I don't care if you blow up American companies in the region. I don't care if you blow up the Gulf. I don't care if you shut off oil and gas transfers to the Asian markets. None of that matters to me, even if it's actually giving China a significant upper hand. And part of the reason why he can say stuff like this is because in some ways he's not wrong. America is sheltered by proximity of the worst impacts of this instability that it is creating around the world. And therefore, it gets to be a very selfish country, okay, as it wages this war. So the calculation from the Iranian side, when I look at it, is now in the hands of European security partners of America and the Asian security partners of America, and perhaps even China as well, to apply pressure to Donald Trump to come to the table and give Iran basically most of the demands that Iran is making, right? Sanctions relief, allowing it to remain a sovereign nation, all this stuff without American interference. Because in the absence of American partners pressuring America to stop, it's clear to me that America is not going to stop. Even if the gas prices keep going up at the pump and Americans get more and more mad, and even if like Trump's MAGA base starts retreating from their previous positions that this is actually good, I don't see Donald Trump moving from this position of doing maximum damage to Iran. And I worry, given that he has warned that Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific is going to be when he blows up every Iranian power plant, as he's claimed he's going to do, and all the bridges in Iran. I worry that Iran's retaliation, when that happens, will be to destroy 20% of the entire world's oil and gas supply. Going up the escalation ladder on the American and Israeli side has always led to Iran also going up the escalation ladder in kind in an effort to develop deterrence. If Iran doesn't do that, it has no power. If Iran doesn't do that, then they might as well give up. And that's precisely what Donald Trump wants them to do. So in some ways, they have to do it. Right? Because this is now, for Iran, a battle for sovereignty. For Iran, it's a battle to protect 93 million people. They have to do whatever they can. What's Trump's end goal? Is this only for Israel? As I don't even see this helping American business. Yeah, I mean, he got entangled. He got goaded into this by Israel. He was the only one crazy enough to do it. And basically, unless European partners, which are now going to Iran to do bilateral relations, to develop bilateral relations, go back to the United States of America, say, you have to stop this. This is going to destroy the world. There's no turning back from this. And this is what I have been saying from the start, right? From the jump, I've said, this is about munitions, and Anthony Blinken has also echoed this sentiment as well. So you know it's solid analysis, I guess. Since he's no longer in power, he gets to be critical of America and Israel's endeavors. This is about bullets and capital. If there's tremendous pressure from capital owners to quit, then Trump has to respond to it. It's about the markets. If Trump can't manage the markets and manipulate the markets adequately as it wages this war of choice and continues conducting terrorism, if there is enough pressure that is mounted on Trump from capital owners, he'll have to back away. The other type of pressure he could receive potentially is diplomatic pressure from allies. Will he listen to them? I don't know. But if there's enough overwhelming consensus from European partners, from the Latin American countries, from the Asian partners, he might have to yield. And then the last part of this design, this gamble, is if America and Israel run out of bullets. Obviously, even America's offensive capabilities have diminished in this process. We have deployed a tremendous percentage of our standoff munitions. And part of the reason why we're doing that is because we're not capable of just flying over the Iranian airspace, in spite of the fact that Donald Trump has claimed that we have air superiority over the entirety of the Iranian airspace. It's not the case. That's part of the reason why we're still deploying standoff munitions, a lot more offensive weapons than we thought we would deploy. And then also on the other side, you have the defensive munitions. America's running out of those too. That's precisely the reason why Iran has been able to effectively strike targets both in the heart of Israel and maybe even on the Israeli military targets. We don't have enough information on that, unfortunately. While also simultaneously hitting whichever target they see fit in the Gulf. So, at a certain point, there's going to be a cost-benefit analysis. Is Trump capable of engaging in a cost-benefit analysis that forces him to retreat? Fuck no. That's why he has to get 1 million boss calls before he actually retreats. But in the absence of that pressure from European leaders, from Asian leaders, from capital owners, Jamie Dimon calling him to be like, cut it out, you're a fucking idiot, what are you doing? It's just not going to happen. I think he would blow up the rest of the world.
Because there are other things that are worse than those two. And we might have, well, the thing, if I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. Because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can
No hate at all, but did we really run out of munitions, or we ran out of munitions in the region? Is that why all those planes and boats got shipped out the other day to resupply? We're desperately pulling in munitions from our global stockpile. So yes, obviously this stuff is super classified, and it's all speculative. But you can make assessments on, let's say, whether America has accomplished its military objectives of successfully deteriorating Iranian strike capabilities by looking at Iran's hit rate and the successes that they are achieving in terms of lobbing missiles still from Iranian airspace into Israel. This proves two things. One, we haven't actually been able to attrit their striking capabilities. And two, we haven't been able to, Israel's defensive munitions are running out. So they have to move those assets to areas of high need, you know, politicians, heads of state, heads of the military, and also protect the military assets. This creates an environment where there's not a lot of anti-air defense capabilities in civilian areas, and maybe even some of the military targets as well, or some of the industrial targets that Iran has been striking. The other thing that we can infer from the types of weapons that America is using, standoff munitions that they're deploying at an alarming rate. Some estimates say that America's used up the majority of its long-range missiles in a matter of 37 days. This shows that we are not utilizing our unguided gravity bombs that we could potentially drop from our airplanes. Okay, we have that. We have gravity bombs. They're much less complicated to develop. We have that in abundance. So the fact that we're not using those and we're using instead incredibly costly missiles that we don't have an infinite supply of implies that we don't have full confidence in our air superiority. Okay? That means that America has not been able to, especially paired up with the fact that Iran was able to take out an F-15 on Iranian soil and an A-10 Warthog and numerous other assets alongside, Mark 9, MQ-9 Reaper drones and plenty of other aerial assets, implies that Iran still has some capabilities of mounting successful air defenses.
Do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran, much better than they've been taken care of. It's been horrible. They've killed 40.
My mom wants to know why there are so many hit pieces on you this week. It's because Democrats are more worried about people like myself that represent people like you and our voices being heard than Donald Trump continuing to propagandize. Their priorities are not about combating Trump. Their priorities are very clearly about aligning with MAGA, as a matter of fact, to consistently attack their left flank. And that's precisely what they're doing. I think it's pretty clear. Why. That's why I always say, look at my naysayers, look at their profiles, look at their background, and key search the word Gaza, Israel, genocide, and you will know exactly why this is happening. Okay? They're worried about prominent critics of Israel gaining a foothold in American discourse. They don't want prominent critics of Israel to be legitimized. They think, foolishly, that people did not independently arrive at their conclusions about Israel after 2.5 years of genocide, but instead they got hypnotized by the likes of someone like myself, and they can't attack the overwhelming majority of the population that is demanding a change in our relationship with Israel, especially at a time when it's very clear that we're waging this incredibly costly and incredibly bloody war at the behest of Israel. They can't, criticize the overwhelming majority of the public, so they just like seek out outspoken critics of Israel to try and humiliate them, to try and bully them into submission, and it hasn't worked. But that hasn't stopped them. They're going to keep writing these fucking articles. I think it's backfiring on them regardless. But at the end of the day, the question remains, what's worse? A genocide or a vulgar critic of genocide? Vulgarity being deployed while criticizing said genocide, right? And that's it. They're not attacking me necessarily. They're attacking everyone that has the same attitude, everyone that shares the same resentment. To use a Trumpian term, they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way.